Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us live, and for those of you who are going to be seeing this at a later time. Chaplain Michael Fuentes and I, Jacky Urmey, are really excited to spend some time having an unscripted conversation with you called Setback to Comeback. I'm Jacky Urmey. I'm the Director of Psychological Health for the 514th Air Mobility Wing. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and here as a mental health consultant. So today I will be looking at the psychological health aspects of this wonderful story that Chaplain Fuentes is going to talk to you more about.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacky. Good morning, everybody. I'm Chaplain Fuentes from the 514th. Our wing chaplain is Father Matina, and our superintendent is Master Sergeant Ramos. We provide support, pastoral care, religious accommodation, counseling, and 100% confidentiality. If you got burdens in your heart and you need someone to talk to, Chapel's a great place. Jacky's a great place to kind of unload a little bit. Those pebbles add up, and sometimes they overwhelm us. So we want to be a safe place for you guys to just share and unload a little bit and continue on your journey. Today, we have a great message for you, an inspirational message for everyone. This is for everyone. This is for religious and non-religious. So thank you for coming. Winner, winner, setback, recover, win again. Winner, winner, setback, recover, win again. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Who said that? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. That was heavyweight Mike Tyson. And I don't know about you, but a lot of us have gotten punched in the face with COVID, with social unrest. So many things are going on in the world. It has disrupted our lives. And maybe you had a plan. Maybe you had goals. Maybe you had a direction, and everything has gotten disrupted because of what's happening on the outside, and that causes a lot of stress. And just listening, just being aware of my surroundings. I know a lot of people are going through those kind of things, and we want to share the story. And I think we all can learn from the story how to overcome when we have a setback in life. Um, it's good when everything's going well, but when you have that setback, sometimes it could take you out. And we want to help you get back in the game, get back in life, and living that happy life. So in this story, the first thing we're gonna talk about is fear. So there's an evil queen. An evil queen. She sends out some death threats, and this once victorious prophet, he runs away in fear. He just won an epic battle. He was fighting hundreds of prophets, hundreds. He's the only one. He's the only warrior on his side, and he won. Somehow he won. He lived through it. It was like the upset of the century. Like somehow he won that battle. And he just had that epic battle, and he's walking in victory. And the queen on the other side, she hears the news, and she sends that threat, and he runs. He runs after fighting all these prophets. He hears her words and runs. And if you're reading this story, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense because he was a winner. He was a hero. If we look at his record, he was a successful prophet, miracle worker. In the beginning of his career, he actually confronted the king of the north, and he prayed and called a drought for 3.5 years. His prayers were so strong, he was able to call a drought for 3.5 years. Then after that, he lived by a brook and had ravens come and feed him miraculously. Then after that, he went and he helped a widow and miraculously helped feed her during a time of famine. There was no rain, there was no food, but through miraculous means, she was able to feed her family and not die from starvation. She saved his family. He saved his family. And while he was living with his family, the child got sick. I don't know if you ever had a child that's got sick, but that's one of the most difficult things in the world. And I actually worked in a hospital first before I became a military chaplain. And when the kids got sick, it broke your heart. It will break your heart. And when I have children, I have 3 children, and I remember when they were really young, when they were super young. you can't give them medicine. When they get sick, you can't give them medicine. You're like, what do you do? I can't give them medicine. So you're praying, and they're so fragile, and it breaks your heart. So the widow, she came to the prophet. Why is this happening? Well, how can this be happening? That you saved the starvation, and now he's dying for sickness. And so the prophet miraculously, he healed the boy, and the boy came back to life. It was amazing, because that mother, that's all she had was her son. That's all she had, and through miraculously, she saved that boy. He saved that boy. And then the drought, and then God called him to go back to the king, and he confronted that king. And he told the king, "All right, the rain is coming." He prayed again, and the rain came. And it was a tsunami. It was just a flood of rain. It had been 3.5 years, and he called that rain back. And then he had that confrontation with the other prophets. It was 400 of one type and 450 of another type, and they were battling all day long. And there was a contest. They said, call on your God, and the God that answers by fire is the winner. So first, the other prophets went, and they from morning to noon, no fire came down, and finally Elijah stepped to the plate. He said, throw some water on the altar. Throw it again, and throw it again. I want it to be clear. I want it to be known that I didn't cheat, that there is power in the God I'm calling on. And he prays, and the fireball comes from heaven. The fireball just falls and consumes all the water. And the people shout, Yahweh is God. Yahweh is God. And he's coming from that victory. And when the queen sets to death, he breaks. How could he break? He has so many victories. And what I want to encourage everyone today is, even the strong can break. Even the strong need help sometimes. Even the strong can give into fear. Even the strong get tired. And that's what we want to talk about. That's what we want to talk about today. Jacky, you got any thoughts for us?
Yeah, the story is very powerful because it, as Chaplain Fuentes mentioned earlier, this kind of crosses all faith practices. And even if it's not necessarily a faith that you practice, it's a story we can all really relate to. This prophet Elijah, in essence, seemed to be a great sacrificer. And one of the topics I've actually been talking about with some people lately, and it ties right into this, exactly right into this story, is that some of us are servants to our communities. We're societal assets. We help others, we're givers, we're self-sacrificers. And, some of you out there who have been fighting these battles for other people, helping other people, giving to other people, helping other people through really difficult times. There's a lot of unfairness going on that's even impacting those of us who are givers. So it seems really unfair. It seems there's this air of kind of hopelessness to it. Like, why bother? Why am I doing all of this when this perception is out there about me? And like the queen sending death threats, and I think Elijah turned inward, got depressed, right? That's anger turned inward is depression. So he was getting really angry at the situation because it was very unjust. It was unfair. It seemed unwarranted. So he went inward. A lot of us do that. A lot of us turn inward when we get afraid and when we get angry. So he turned inward and got to the point where he was so down and out that I believe in the story, he asked God to even take his life. And some of us get to that place. And I know this has been a hugely challenging year with a lot of people probably having thoughts like they've never thought before. They never thought that would ever cross my mind. I've always been pretty stable. I've always been pretty strong, but this year's really testing and challenging us. So in this one story, and there's more to it, of course, or else we wouldn't be here. We're not going to end it on this note. There's that way out. There's that hope that can kind of pull us through the strength, pull us through the tough times to help us tap into whatever that source of strength is for us to help us overcome our fears.
Yes, awesome. And we want to encourage you guys. So many have been given so much. the medical staff, COVID, so many frontliners. I mean, this has been hailball, so many crazy stuff this year. I mean, it's like a movie. We're like living in a movie here, and a lot of us are tired, right? I can tell you, my wife's tired. Why? Because the kids don't go to school. They've been home. They've been cooked up at the house all this time. I don't know if you have kids, but a lot of parents are tired. You're like, please open up school. Can you take my children? And and we're not used to being so close to everybody. You get that break, right? When you go to work, there's a break. When you're driving back from work to home, there's a break. And so if you're working from home and your kids are home, there's no break. And you want to escape and you love them, but you can't take them anymore. And that's normal. That's normal. We need breaks. And if you're a giver, just like Miss Urmey was talking about, you can overwhelm yourself. You can overwhelm because we all have limits. We all have limits. And then you get angry, and then depression, and the cycle happens. And I think Jacky's right on that Elijah was such a giver. He was such a giver. And as we continue with our story, he ran to the south. And one thing that's interesting in the story is he got to the south and he had a companion with him. But what did he do? The story says that he left his companion behind and he actually isolated himself. And the story goes that he went into the woods and he found a tree and he sat by the tree. And when he sat by the tree, he said, God, it's enough. I had enough. I'm no better than my ancestor. Take my life. And if you're a believer, it's shocking, right? You're the man of God. How can you be given up? How can you be given up? You just called down fire from heaven. You just called a drought. You just called back the rain. God used you for this. You did some these incredible feats. How can you give up now? It's kind of shocking. And you have to ask yourself, what? How can you get a person that has given so much get to that point? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what happened in Elijah's life that took him to that point. But one thing I want to point out is that he isolated himself, and that's a danger. That's dangerous when you isolate yourself. Working in the prison system for 9 years, when we have a special housing units, let's say the inmates or prisoners are acting out and stuff, and we put them in a more secure area. One of the things they teach us every year is do not isolate them. If you have two people in a cell, their chances of living are good. But as soon as you remove a person, as soon as you leave them by themselves, their risk for suicide just jumps. It jumps so high. It jumps so high. We have learned through many years, do not isolate. They need another person. We are born to connect. We're born to be around. Even if you're introvert, you need people around you. And I know sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we withdraw. We withdraw from everyone. And one of the signs to look for suicide is if they're isolating themselves. They're writing notes. They're giving things away. I know Jacky's going to talk more about this, but I'm just sharing a little bit. What I know is if you see someone that's normally part of a group and they're withdrawing, isolating themselves, that's a warning sign that something is not right. Jacky, can you talk to us a little bit more about this?
Definitely. So you mentioned, struggling with limit setting, right? We've reached the end of our limits with some of these challenges that require so much from us. We're pulled in a lot of different directions and we're forced to make these decisions that never even crossed our mind before. So we don't even know how to do that. So, especially even with school, I hopped on here like 2 minutes before 9 because I was actually having a conversation with my mother-in-law, who graciously is coming out of retirement from being a teacher to homeschool my kid. So we're talking about plans and we're like, whoever thought we'd get to this? But we have to have boundaries. And I feel like with the work from home, the school at home, we've lost sight a lot of what those boundaries are. Like, where does the workday or school day end and begin? And for most of us in the beginning, we were like, oh, this is kind of cool. But now as time has gone on, we're like, wait a second, we've all kind of lost sight of how to maintain those boundaries. And when that happens, it just blurs. it blurs into our life and it confuses our roles as people, right? So we have the parent role, you've got your employee role, you've got your, whatever role it is, student role. And when everything takes place in the same physical location, those roles get blurred and we don't really know how to turn off one thing and another. And that means our mind is really going all the time with all of these different kinds of roles. So when we reach that point, it can be very overwhelming. And a lot of times we want to isolate to get away from all the noise. Um, Now, isolation in itself is not necessarily a warning sign, but when you take into context with the current circumstances, with what you know about the person, some people need to take a walk. Walking is fine. They took a walk to cool off, to get their head clear, whatever. But it's that extended period of isolation that you want to pay attention to, that withdrawing, like with Elijah, like literally leaving his battle buddy behind. That is a huge, huge warning sign. Somebody that was supposed to be a partner with him through this, going to a different place. And back in the day, you'd walk miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. Now we can get in our car and drive and be there in 5 minutes. But when you think of the distance he put between himself and his other support, that's a huge warning sign. So, we definitely have to look at that, in ourselves. Are some of us starting to pull away? Are some of us starting to withdraw? Because the noise is too much. We're just feeling overwhelmed. So it's just something to pay attention to.
Amen, amen, and thank you, Jacky. Yeah, I think you know yourself, your those around you, and just like Jack says, like those changes. Like if you see a change in behavior, definitely pay attention. Pay attention. There's a context. There's a context to everything, and I was thinking about this story. I was praying about the story, trying to understand the story. I says, why Elijah? Why are you giving up? And as I'm reading and thinking about it and praying and meditating, I think he was tired, fatigued, because he went to this tree and he sat down, he asked to die, and then he went to sleep. He went to sleep, and so we all handle stress differently. Some of us, I guess, maybe go crazy, we're anxious, but he went to sleep, and then even when God is dealing with him, he's sleeping a lot. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever gotten so tired you want to give up? Have you ever got to that stage like, man, I'm tired. I can't take it anymore and I want to give up? And I want to encourage you today that we many of us, we do have a breaking point. We do have that breaking point, Now, and I tell you, in my own life, I have gotten tired, and you have all these thoughts, and that's the moment that we need to reach out for some help, And I remember one day I was really upset about something and having some, not healthy thoughts, and I called a friend. And my friend was a chaplain. And I said, Chaplain, I need a chaplain. The chaplain needs a chaplain right now, And he's so gracious and listened to me. And after I talked to him, I felt so much better. I said, wow, this is probably what people feel like when they talk to me sometimes, And I'm glad I talked to him, because if not, maybe I would have taken actions that, I would regret. I would take some actions that I regret. And I want you guys to know that we're all human. Religious, non-religious, chaplain, non-religious. We are humans. We have limitations. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay. Please ask for help. Please have a couple people in your life. Can you name 3 people in your life right now? Can you name 3 people in your life that you can call if you need help? Besides mom and dad, you have a couple people in your life that are positive that you can talk. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't have those people. But I want to encourage you, please find people that you can call and ask for help, that you can trust. Sometimes it's hard to trust people. And I want you to also know that we are also here for you. Let's say you can't get a hold of someone. The chaplain's here. We have 3 chaplains on staff. We have Jacky here. We have chaplain assistants here. So there are people. I know we have family relatives. There are people here, first sergeants. There's so many people here like that. We care for you. We love you. We're here to support you. We might not be able to fix all the problems, but we will do our best and try to find someone that can. And so I'm going to tell you again, sometimes the chaplain needs a chaplain, and I'm okay. I'm okay with asking for help. You know, if I feel overwhelmed, I'm going to ask for help. So I want to encourage you, ask for help. Yes, Jackie, jump in, Jackie.
On that note, sorry, I'm trying to stay out of the sunlight coming through here, so you might see me moving around a little. Um, you know, when we talk about reaching out as a sign of strength, and you know, you don't have to wait until you're in that really dark place, or you don't have to wait until you're noticing changes, you know, to reach out and to talk to somebody. I know some people have reached out to me just being, you know, saying, hey, I got myself into a situation and I don't really know what the outcome is or how to get through it. I just wanted to talk about it with somebody to kind of get my directions in my mind. And then they're good to go. So, you know, this is Suicide Prevention Month in September. You know, Chaplain Martina sent out an email that if some of you haven't read, scroll through your thousands of emails that you've gotten since you were here the last month. Read the message. It's amazingly real. You know, I use the word touching, but I feel like that's not quite as genuine as I even want to say. But it talks about a loss, you know, a personal loss. And you know, we don't want to focus so heavy necessarily on the loss and on suicide for this, but we have to really address it. But we want to really focus on, you know, some of these normal experiences that we're all going through. You know, if one of you out there feels like we're really talking to you and this, you know, this conversation we're having is addressed to you, it's wonderful. But I want you to know, like, we're here to help you through it. This isn't the end of it. And I know we've kind of hit on some fear. We've hit a little bit on isolation and pain, and we moved into fatigue, right? So there's like a process of where you start to really worry, right? Fear is anxiety based. So worry is, well, I got it backwards. Worry and anxiety is fear based. Usually we're afraid of something and that uproots some anxiety and worry, and we overcompensate for that by contingency planning and thinking all the time, and trying to have control. That's a way that helps us calm our anxiety, but sometimes it winds up cycling our anxiety even more. Because the more we think about something without having any more control over it at all, the more we're kind of working ourselves up. So that leads you to feeling that fatigue as well. But there is a way to recover. There is a way to recognize, right? I always tell everybody the first step in change is awareness, simply becoming aware, simply observing. Observe your behavior, observe how you feel, observe your reactions without trying to make any change, and just get to know who you are, get to know you. Once you recognize and are aware more of where you're at, like Elijah in that moment, that's when change can really start to happen. And I know recovery is another component of this fantastic story that Chaplain Fuentes is, this journey you're taking us on today.
We're on a journey, guys. We're starting to wrap up. Hang in there with us. So the prophet, he's sitting down. He's given up. He's fatigued. He's tired. He says, God, take my life. He lays down. And what does God do? Is God mad with him? No, he sends him help. He sends him help. And so he sends a messenger, and the messenger says, okay, Elijah, get up and eat. You know, the first thing he's like, feed his body can eat. You know, I can't imagine sometimes when you're stressed, you haven't eaten for a long time. Who knows what's going on? And he gets up and eat, and he goes right back to sleep. That's why I think fatigue is an issue here. He eats and goes right back to sleep, you know, and then the messenger wakes him up again, says, no, eat some more. You got to eat some more. Your journey's not over yet, you know? So eat some more. And finally, his strength is restored, and he goes on a journey. He goes to the mountain of God. He's going even more south, and he shows up to the mountain of God. And when he gets to the mountain of God, God says, hey, why are you here? Why are you here, Elijah? And Elijah starts saying, man, I did this and I did that, and I'm the only one left. I'm the only one left. And God's listening, and God says, hey, why are you here? Why are you here? I don't know if Jacky can jump in and talk to us about why.
Well, I'm really interested in hearing from any of our participants at this point of what you're thinking in regards to where we are before we jump into that know your why question, does anybody want to add any thoughts? I don't have to put anybody on the spot.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, hey, this is Johnny. My camera won't seem to work for me, so it'll just be audio. But I'm here for a couple reasons. First is, like, this is really great information, and as a first sergeant and working with people, I know we have there's a lot of pain right now, especially going through COVID. And so it's just how we can make that connection with them. And secondly, as I'll share with everyone, as Jacky knows, I'm going through a recent breakup, and that has been very hard on me personally. And, when you mentioned having your 3 people you can call and ask for help, I can name them, because that's what I've been doing, is reaching out to them like, hey, help me walk me through this, and I can understand the fatigue and, from that, and, and I'm on my comeback, but all in all, this is just really great. And, I just can tell you're speaking to me, and personally, but also professionally, and just how we want to help others.
Thank you, Johnny, for sharing that. And, this is something that, it really just crosses all lanes. It's not one particular topic. It's the human experience. I know Chaplain Matina's been talking about that a bit this weekend. And being human, it's hard. It's hard. There's no easy path. We're always developing. We're always trying to improve. And we're kind of always getting hurt and disappointed in the process, and trying to find out how that can be less and less and less as we go through life. I know part of the recover, part of the know your why, it's absolutely that. It's a little bit of that self-exploration to help you get through. Ruben, did you want to jump in or throw any thoughts out there before we move on?
Just like the chaplain had said, everybody needs help, and there's no shame in getting help.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks.
Amen.
Moving into know your why, right? That was something we've heard about a little bit over the past couple of years, like kind of understanding what your values are. A big part of Air Force resilience classes, for those of you who might have been active duty in the past, you were kind of voluntold to do these classes. It was a requirement. And in the reserves, we kind of get to do it how it best fits our needs with any kind of resilience focused classes. But a big component of resilience is understanding your values. Before you can really move on to planning a life, making any kind of decisions, it's important to know what you stand for. It's important to know what makes you tick. It's important to know what's important to you, right? Some of us, we are conflicted in what are our most important things, what are our values. For some of us, it's very clear cut. And when we get in the crossfire of 2020, which I kind of look at like this ocean that's continually throwing these waves of stuff at us, right? We're stuck in this ocean, we're stuck in these waves, and they just keep coming. This has been probably the most, choppy sea of a year that I can remember. And how do we maintain some sort of mental stability and feel rooted, feel grounded when we're literally being pushed around, right, all the time by these different waves? How do you stay solid? A lot of that has to do with what our values are. So if we really value family connection, if we really value work ethic, if we really value relationships, if we really value children, whatever those things are to you that help you feel grounded and are connected to who you are, you can make decisions based on what those values are, right? And Elijah, his value and his priority was his faith. So it helped him kind of be grounded in this place where he felt like he was floating and there was hopelessness and despair. So for those of you who are in that place, you're creeping into it and you're like, oh, I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting really pushed around a lot this year. Try to think about those values. What really makes you tick?
Hey, this is Anthony, also listening, and I wanted to mention that you're making me think about how a lot of folks are maybe kind of homebodies normally, and then in these times it's that much more challenging because they've got to be, you know. And so if you don't have regular contact with folks, and that's just not your personality, the little bit that you do have kind of sustains you. And now you don't even have that little bit, and it's like an even deeper dive. And it takes a little extra oomph and a little extra energy on the part of folks with that kind of personality to, you know, create some Zoom meetings and say, hey, let's play a game online, or, you know, let's have a cocktail hour after work, or let's do something. You know, if you have friends like that, if you know people like that, I think you need to reach out to them because they might not have the skills or talent to do that themselves.
No, wonderful point. You're spot on with that. There's been a lot of people who felt a bit forgotten about because maybe they tended to be quiet in the first place, and nobody really needed to check up on them because they got to see them during UTA. And now we have all this time go by, and you're right. It takes extra effort. It takes energy. So when you're really
Yes.
I'm sure some of us, even the ones who are the most well-practiced in relationship building, I've had plenty of times where I've just felt like I've fatigued and hit a wall. I just don't have the energy to reach out. I don't have the energy to do it. So, you know, the chaplain mentioned chaplains need chaplains. Therapists need therapists. So what I decided to do was maintain a regular appointment with my therapist virtually. I was like, I don't know what the next 2 weeks are going to bring. I need somebody to talk to because I'm a human still going through all of this, like all of you. And I want to be healthy enough and strong enough to be able to help all of you. So I got to focus on me too. I got to make sure that I got my self-care practices. I got to make sure I got my person. And I say, I don't care what's going on. You call me 4 p.m. Wednesday or whatever the time was, like every other week, like clockwork, because that way I don't have to schedule it. I don't have to think about it. I know I'm going to get that call. So you can do that with friends. You can do that with family, where it's not like you're continually reaching out. You could say, if you know somebody consistent in your life who likes to reach out, very outgoing, say, can you just set a reminder on your phone for maybe every Monday at 2 p.m., send me a WhatsApp text. You know, set up those reminders for other people to kind of help you through it, because you might not have the energy to do it all the time. So there's a lot of ways to kind of get around it. That's just one idea to kind of help you through, get that support system consistent. You know, I feel like during this time we need something that's consistent because we haven't had a lot of that going on this year. So if we can have that through just communication and through phone reminders, or like Sergeant Gallela was saying, you know, a Zoom meeting or a cocktail hour, something you kind of don't have to maybe be the one to coordinate. You can at least just log in and participate, or have somebody reach out to you on a schedule. A really nice way of feeling connected through all of this.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, this season is really pushing us to kind of think differently. And one part of the story that I thought was interesting was in the beginning, when the drought started, God told him go to a brook. But that brook dried up. And so that place of nourishment was actually temporary. It wasn't permanent. And I think sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we think that job or that one source we're depending on, once it tanks, we tank, and we don't understand that it's time to move on. And I think a lot of people do get stuck and say, but we can move on. We can be resilient. We can transition. And I was talking to one of the mechanics this weekend, and he was talking about a time when the airlines went down. And he says, hey, I worked on planes, I could work on cars. So he started working on cars, and he took his skill set and applied it to other industries, other areas of life. And we have to do that for relationships, for scheduling, and some of these creative things, Zoom meetings and block parties. Be creative. Be creative. What worked in the past might not work in the future. But take that principle and try to adapt it to the new environment.
That's absolutely spot on. This has been a year of us trying new things for sure. Like, how do you live life through a computer? Yeah, we've all grown a lot this year, and I think that's really important to recognize that even though some of us might feel like we're kind of, really being maxed out on what we can give, what we can do, as far as self-care. I want to really encourage you all to keep in mind that we've been surviving this year. We've had a lot of loss, so I don't want to be insensitive to that when I say like we're surviving this year, but in essence, I also want to recognize that we've come a long way. We have a long way to go, but this year I think has grown us in a lot of ways. So we talked about values, right? Knowing your why, knowing what makes you tick, knowing what's important to you. When you know your values, you can build on that. You can develop your skills in line with what your values are. And like that mechanic that Chaplain Fuentes was talking about, he had a skill set. It was a transferable skill set. He transitioned based on need. And that's what we do as humans. We are adaptable, right? We evolve. I don't want to get too much into the whole anthropological human development side of things. But that's part of who we are biologically as a species. We adapt, we evolve. When the circumstances shift, if we don't make those changes, if we don't think differently, if we don't get creative and innovative, it doesn't require a lot of energy. It just requires willingness. Someone else can come up with all the ideas. We just have to be willing to say, okay, I'll try it. If we have that willingness, that means we're going to adapt and evolve. If we didn't, we'd go extinct. Think of all the species that go extinct. It's because their circumstances and their environments shift and change, yet that one particular species can't for whatever reason. I don't think they don't have the thought capabilities we do. That's what makes us human, right? Is that we have this extremely complicated thought and communication and language ability. But for whatever reason, they were not able to adapt and evolve, and so they go extinct. We, though, think of all the amazing stuff we've done as humans. Look at all the amazing things we've created as humans. If you're a faith-based person, you may believe God gave us the abilities to do all of this. If you're not a faith-based person, then science. Look at all the things that we can do. We are pretty amazing. So I want to encourage all of you as you're watching this and as you're like, here we go again with another resilience kind of focused, challenging time thing. It's different now. It's different in September. It's different on September 13th, 2020 than it was yesterday, than it will be tomorrow. Because every single day we are growing, we're developing, we're shifting, we're changing, and we're getting through this. We're getting through this together. My hope all the way back in March when we found out we were going, HBCon Charlie and nobody come in and UTAs were virtual, my hope and prayer was that when we come back together, we come back together stronger. But I didn't know how that was going to happen. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I now am really confident that we are working very hard for that to be our reality, for us to be together stronger, for us to really feel connected, genuine connections with other people. And while we're going through this transition, which is not over, we're still going through it. But knowing we're in this together, knowing that we have all these wonderful supports here, and that we're not going to let anyone fall through the cracks. The second I can tell you, you're on my radar, you're on Chaplain's radar, even Airmen and Family Readiness with Ms. Pates. When you're on our radar, we are going to probably annoy the heck out of you until you're like, yo, I'm fine. I don't need you to call me anymore. And I tell people that I'm going to bug you until you convince me you're totally fine. No, not really. I don't annoy people. But I want people to know you're not forgotten about. We care. We really care. We care because we care. We just have, that's like our value, to care for others, to give others that love and genuine compassion. It's a value. So we're living that in the type of work that we do. So my hope is that through talking to you today about some of these things is maybe, being kinder to who you are, loving on yourself a little bit more, and realizing that, as much as alone and isolated and tired as you might feel, a lot of us are feeling that way, and it's okay to talk to people about it. There's a lot of people who don't want to bother other people with what they're thinking. I can tell you, it's nice to know when somebody feels the way you do, so you can be like, oh my God, me too. Let's talk about that Me Too, a different kind of Me Too movement, right? Okay, I'm struggling, Me Too. I'm tired, Me Too. Okay, Me Too to all of that, I can tell you. Anybody else want to share some thoughts?
going to jump into Jackie. Just to wrap up the story here. God gives him a revelation, and two things that really jump out is he tells Elijah the mission is not done. Go and know it a couple kings, and the second thing he tells him is you're not alone. I know you feel alone, like you're the only one, but you're not alone. I have other people, you know. And what I want to encourage you today, guys, is the mission's not done and you're not alone, you know. So much lost today, so much lost in the last couple months. It teaches us that life is fragile, it's precious. And I want to encourage you that you are valuable. Today is valuable and every day is valuable. I want to encourage you, keep on going, one step at a time, one day at a time. We care for you. We're here for you. Let's take care of each other, you know. Let's take care of each other. And hey, we're rooting for you. We're praying for you, and we're rooting for you.
I want to thank you guys for coming. And do you have any final thoughts before we close?
I just have a question. This is Johnny, and my question is for the chaplain, and also I guess Jacky is for our members that would like to reach out to you, and it's kind of after hours or so forth. What is the best method for people to reach you? And one of the reasons why I'm asking is we had a member situation over 4th of July that I was able to reach Chaplain King for her to assist, and just want to see if you could put that out there for some of our members who might need to reach you on a holiday or so forth.
Awesome. Definitely. For the chaplain's office, right now is a great time for us. Myself and Master Sergeant Ramos, we're in orders till the end of fiscal year. So you can email us or you can call us or text us. My number is 304-506-2060. 304-506-2060. Text, call, anytime is fine. We're on orders. We're here to serve you the best of our abilities.
Perfect. And I'll just jump in right quick there. So I'm available for urgent consultation 24/7 by first certs and commanders, and they have my cell phone number. But if you are in need and you're watching this and you want to reach out to me, just know that I'm not necessarily going to reply after working hours. I will probably get back to you the next day. That number would be 609-286-4249, 609-286-4249. The best number to call 24/7 if you are in crisis, you're experiencing actual mental health emergency, is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that's 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Outstanding presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny, for tuning in.